someone's family about to grow?
Not ours.
No.
We're not pregnant.
Well, it depends. That was a trick. It wasn't real. That would be the divine conception.
Absolutely would. The entire gene area at the back was soaking wet.
Given.
You don't
say,
need to
say,
know.
say nothing more about
you don't
me.
Need to know.
But also.
I'm very old. So that's say no more.
Say no more. Act casual. Word to the wise. Nose tap. And all that jazz.
Maybe one or two people.
Of Whitby's most famous delicacies.
You don't really wear pyjamas, but that sounded wrong. You just wear clothes of an evening, just not pyjamas. Welcome everyone to episode 87.
Yes!
Of the Bakery Bears.
We are back, people, with the hugest episode.
Outer space.
Yes. Well, who sang that? I've forgotten. Don't walk around.
Oh, somebody famous. You're all shouting it.
Now go. Walk out the door. Don't
Just
turn around now.
No, just turn around now.
Because you're not welcome anymore. Aren't you the one who's... Oh, I can't remember. It's from Priscilla.
Gloria Gaynor.
Yes, we got there in the end.
Yes.
When you get past 40,
Yes.
it takes a little bit of time, doesn't it? For the old...
Brain cells are depleting.
For the old grey cells, for the little grey cells
Oh,
to...
yes.
Oh, yes. Oh. A Poirot.
Oh,
Now,
my word.
you can't say too much because
I can't.
you're going to be writing a review.
I am.
In the next edition of... It's our Christmas special, Knitability, and it will be out in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's so very exciting. So
yeah,
Kay will be writing a complete
A
review
review of Murder on the Orient Express, the new one, which we went to see last week. And
Say
all
nothing
I will say
is nothing, and we shall move on. You shall find out all about it in the review that Kay will write. You'll blow it. She's banned. I need one of those fuzzy faces, don't I, to put over.
I can tell by my face.
So yes, this is the hugest episode in the history of huge episodes. And why do you ask? Well, because we will be going on our final new adventure of the 2017 season.
Wow.
Can you believe it, Kay? We started our new adventure series back in March.
Gosh, was it really?
I know. And it's run all the way through.
And what was the first one we did?
The first one that we did was, oh, you see, you've asked me now. It was Tynemouth.
Oh gosh,
Yes.
right.
And-
the fish and chips debacle.
But it wasn't a debacle because the fish and chips we had were gorgeous.
Yes.
But what an amazing year it's been, and we will be recapping the year just a tiny little bit. We'll be publishing our final leaderboard. And we said, didn't we, that the top 2 would go onto our favourite places to knit. They would become one of our favourite places to knit. And very exciting because we returned to one of those top 2.
We did.
To award them their favourite places to knit rosette.
Yes.
And the way that we award said rosette is by taking some pattern shots because what happened in the last couple of weeks?
The update for the Messalina has been done. It was I updated it on Ravelry, so everyone that had previously bought the Messalina, you will have all received an update to the pattern. It was lovely actually. I got lots of messages from people just saying thank you for the update, so that was really nice.
It was quite a dramatic update, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean normally I think when you get pattern updates, it might be that there was a slight mistake or the wording has been changed or something like that, whereas this was just a complete rewrite in effect.
And the reason why you did that, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, is because that was the first shawl that you ever designed.
It was.
And you've learned so much.
Yeah, I've learned a lot since then, and
You wanted to do it
Yeah, there were just
right,
some
didn't you?
aspects that I was never 100% happy with. But it was a lovely shawl, and I was happy with it at the time.
I love mine.
But I always knew that I could do a bit better with it. So now I'm thrilled, and it's here actually. I just brought it.
It's also here.
Oh, yeah, that's the cowl.
I'm worried, but hold on a minute. Why don't we go to Corbridge and have a look at us taking the pattern shots?
Okay. Playing.
So folks, we have returned to Corbridge because it's time for the Messalina launch, and we're here to take some pattern shots. Yippee! So that's it. We got the Messalina shots. It's back to us in the studio.
Yes! So Corbridge gets its favourite place to knit rosette with taking the pattern shots, and here it is. And that pattern is
lovely.
out now, isn't it?
Yeah, all done and out and updated and finished, and thank you to my testers. They got it done super quick, and that's why I was able to put it out. I thought it to be like today when I was putting it out, but they'd finished, so I thought might as well do it. So lovely. Thank you so much.
And I do feel strangely warm and fuzzy about this. Because I was stood right there.
Yeah.
I was stood
Oh, that's true.
right there when the inspiration struck for this whole process.
That's true.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, and because I remember standing there and I got a scrap of paper.
We were in
and
our pyjamas.
I wrote down the pattern for the cowl because he's like, oh, I really want to do that. So it was you actually that inspired the additional. Because within the pattern, there's an additional bonus pattern for the cowl.
That was never there before.
No.
And what I love about living with a designer is that when you get inspired to want to make something, you just say, I'd really like this, this and this, and they go, oh, right, oh, okay. And then they write down a little bit and then, oh, hey, presto, there's your pattern.
It doesn't always happen like that.
No, it doesn't. But do you know what? When I knit this, I did not anticipate that I'd be wearing it.
No.
And actually, I think I pull it off.
You do pull it off. You wear that. It's
Yeah.
fine. The colours are perfect. Yeah.
So we were delighted to go back to, of course, Corbridge, which is the first of our destinations which go into our favourite place to
It
knit.
was freezing when we went back.
I was very glad I had this.
It was so cold, and it was only probably 2 weeks after we originally went, wasn't it?
But
And it wasn't that cold when we originally went.
no, what is?
It was freezing, and we had a picnic as well, and I took blankets and everything, and we were like...
Oh, we did. We sat out and had a
Yeah, we
picnic.
did,
It was
we
great.
did.
What's particularly appropriate though about going to Corbridge to film, well, to take the pattern shots, was because Messalina went to Corbridge.
Amazing.
So the lady who inspired that pattern,
Would have actually been there.
yes, which is
That's
just
an
cool.
amazing thing, isn't it, when you think about it?
We will have walked.
Where she walked.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which is just, it's superb.
Yeah.
Now, isn't it funny when creative headspace clears, other things begin to happen? And I don't think we can say very much, but
No.
is someone's family about to grow?
Not ours.
No.
Oh my, we're not pregnant.
Well, it depends. That would be the divine conception.
Absolutely would.
Given,
You don't
say,
need to
say,
know.
say nothing
You
more
don't
about me.
need to know.
But also,
I'm very old. So that combination, you know.
but it's sort of, well, I don't really want to say very much. I think all we should say is the Bakery Bear family may be about to grow.
Absolutely. Say no more.
Say no more, act casual.
There
Word
may-
to the
there-
wise,
there may
nose
be-
tap, and all that
Maybe
jazz.
one or two people out there that know because I couldn't keep stum.
Oh, you're naughty.
I know.
I told you.
I know.
It's just not on.
No.
What is your natural wave? Because I think that, you know, your natural wave is your natural wave. And, you know, some people like that. The Queen, of course, is like that. Why does she wave like that?
I think it's because it tires your hand.
That doesn't tie you.
That doesn't tire your hand. I don't think she does. I mean, because I'm trying to think how she does. I don't know that she does wave like that anymore.
Right.
I know that Prince Philip tends to do like this little silly.
See? Well, there we go.
Silly little
what is
wave, yeah.
your natural wave? Because some people, it's a small wave.
If you're Jessica Fletcher,
Other people, it's more of a Jessica Fletcher wave. Like this. Now,
we loved that at the beginning.
my natural wave is more of a Jessica Fletcher.
No, it's not.
It is.
He does it to
So-
wind me up.
I dropped Kay off today at the shop. It's your good lady wife who you love dearly, so you wind the window down, you give her a bit of a wave, don't you? So I wind the window down and
Can
I
you
wind
imagine? Looked like some lunatic. Was, you know, so I just put my head down and I ignore him and pretend it's not him.
You
Yeah,
went, no.
Pretend I don't know him.
You went, don't you dare.
I know. Well, I did say that this morning because he does it every single time, and Bryony's in the car laughing her head off, and I'm like, don't encourage him.
You see, my view on the situation is if you're going to wave, you might as well enjoy it.
But it's the stupid smile on your face as well. It's like you're deranged. Honestly.
It's because I know that you get embarrassed about it.
I
so
just like I'm like
don't you
giving
dare.
him the dead eye. It doesn't work.
How do you wave though? Are there any Jessica Fletchers out there, or are there any? Is it Prince Philip? You said it was more.
Prince
of a,
Philip goes like this.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's more of a subtle wave, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's more reflective of your character. Because, you know, you're more, when you're out and about, you're more of a get your head down and I don't want to be seen type of character.
I am like that, yeah. I tend not to look at anyone when I'm out. Because Dan's always like, did you see that over there? Or did you see what that person was wearing? I'm like, I don't look at anybody. I don't look at anything when I'm out. I'm just focused on what I'm doing.
Head down,
Yeah.
get on with the job.
I do. Because sometimes I do things that are silly and then Bryony will say, do that again. I'm like, no, not doing that again. Because if I do, I've got to just do it on the spur of the moment and then that'll be it. You won't get that again.
This is, of course, it's a knitting podcast.
It is.
And we've already been on one adventure to Corbridge and
Gosh,
there's been so
already?
much going on. I think it's about time that we got on with Kay Jones. What's on your needles?
Oh, lovely. Well, I've got...
I'm going to take this off because I'm actually quite warm.
Quite warm, yeah. It's been freezing and then today it's quite mild.
Not just today.
I can't be doing with weather like this.
It was cold on Monday.
It was freezing on Monday.
And now it's gone warm.
And now it's very mild. I hate weather like that. But anyway, I'm really into knitting socks at the moment and I think I've got 5 pairs on the needles.
Lean back.
Because
Yes.
hand knit socks rule.
They do.
Obviously, they do. We all know that, don't we? And we need to educate the rest of the world that this is true.
One of our podcast patrons posted somewhere, I can't remember where it was, that someone had asked them, they'd been somewhere or other, and they you know, someone had said, why would you bother knitting socks when you can buy perfectly good socks?
I think that's a lot of people's attitude, yeah.
Well, you know, that's such a crazy thing to say, isn't it? And it's all of our job to put that message out there because, you know, the answer, I mean, what would you say is top of the list for hand knit socks? Why hand knit socks so good?
Well, the comfort and the fit and the warmth. You can customise them exactly to your foot.
And it's impossible to buy socks that fit your foot perfectly.
Yeah, and I don't like commercial socks. They're always, on me, they're always tight around the ankle.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you wash them a few times and they shrink, don't they? Everything at the moment seems, I think, generally commercial made clothes in general shrink. But socks are terrible for shrinking.
It's interesting that Kay said warmth because I would also say...
I was going to say, follow that with as well, that they're warm, but they're also...
They're warm when they need to be warm and cool when they need to be cool.
They're breathable, aren't they?
Yeah.
Wool is a breathable fabric. So...
I do not wear anything but hand knit socks.
No.
Yes, I've always had a problem in getting socks that fit me right anyway because I've got such big feet.
Yeah.
But even so, all the things that you've said, but also... with walking, you know, because we often do quite a lot of walking when we're going out on adventures. Whatever the season, hand knit socks, I feel less tired at the end of the day.
Yeah, and also I think when it's a commercial pair of socks, I always feel I need to wash them every day. You know, you've worn them once and you wash them. I don't find that with hand knit socks. No. You know,
I love them when you do wash them; they just spring back to.
Yeah, well, they do. Commercial sock yarn, and this one in particular I'm going to talk about, it washes brilliantly well in the washing machine. I don't tumble dry hand knit socks, but I do wash them in the washing machine if it's a commercial yarn. I don't put hand dyed in there. So yeah, it's just all those things really. And I really love knitting socks. There's something about knitting socks that is just so comforting, and it makes me think of, like, my dad used to talk about his mum knitting socks, you know, during the war. But I'm sure my dad used to say that when they had to go down into, like, the air raid shelters, she always used to have a sock to take with her. And it's that kind of thing, it's the history that I love as well, that people have been making socks like this for generations, haven't they?
Yeah.
And I like to think that,
I mean,
you know...
You're totally starting to touch on the pressure points which I want to really get to in this history of knitting thing that I'm going to do next year. Because what you're saying is exactly right. These types of items, these necessity items that people had to have a rich and varied history.
Yeah, and it is, you know, socks are a necessity. You know, for people that live in very hot countries, okay, you might not really wear socks, but you would if,
Where did hand-knit socks originate? Egypt.
Yeah, I know. So even if you do live in a hot country, I'm sure there are times during the year.
We've just said though that
you know, especially
if
you've got air-conditioned houses, you might put them on at night time and things like that. So I think we can all, as a knitter, enjoy knitting socks, and I just love the process of knitting socks. I don't think I'll ever stop knitting them. And if I just had to knit one item for the rest of my life, it would be socks.
I think that it's
Without
time.
a doubt.
It's time that we said it loud and said it proud. Hand knit socks rule, people.
Yes. So,
The end. What's next?
our little rant over. I'm knitting down a pair of socks. I like to make us each a pair of socks that we open on Christmas Eve, and we can wear them, because generally I also get a new pair of pyjamas for Bryony and one for me, and you don't really wear pyjamas, but that sounded wrong. He does wear clothes of an evening, just not pyjamas. So this is Dan's pair of socks, and I finished one of them. Yeah, I know, everybody's laughing at me now. I should just not speak, should I? I mean, really, I'm terrible, aren't I? So this is the first one, and it's an opal yarn. And if you look closely, you can see, I'm pretty sure there's a fault in this ball of yarn. Can you see here? Can you see this sort of splodgy line? Well, that splodgy line spirals all the way down the sock. You can't see it so much in these dark sections, but look, in this lighter section here, you can see it, and it's spiraling here. So when I first cast this on, I saw it and I was like, I've never had that with a ball of opal before. But the thing that made me carry on, and I'm so glad I did, is that this ball of yarn, this particular ball of yarn, was a gift from a lovely friend, and I've had it for over a year now, and that tends to be my hoarding, comfort zone. I've had it a year. I can now knit with it. When it's a special yarn, I really have to keep it for a while before I knit with it. And this one, I mentioned I'd knitted some scrappy socks, and within those scrappy socks there was a particular little scrap of an opal yarn that I got in a mini swap, and I just loved it. And it said the range it came from, and I mentioned it. This lovely friend went looking for a ball of this yarn. It was a discontinued range, and she sent me this ball, and it's Opal Memory. It's from a few years ago, I believe, and the colour I'm using is 2492, and it's these lovely shades of blues. I thought, do you know what, I'm going to carry on, because this is it's like the Tangerine Bear of socks. Does everybody know what I'm talking about when I say Tangerine Bear? And it was on, me and Bryony just love it, and we watch it every year. It was on like a Christmas compilation DVD.
Hello, Granny, how are you?
Yeah,
How
I
are you
know.
doing today?
Yeah, you see, I want to watch it. Oh no, that's Gran.
Yeah.
There's some terrible things on this DVD, really bad. But this particular one is called Tangerine Bear, and it's just lovely. And if you know the story, I won't go into the story, but basically he's like an unusual bear and nobody wants to buy him. And I kind of think that's a bit like this, this poor little ball of yarn that's obviously, when it's gone through the mill, there must have been a speck of this darker dye, like on the rollers or however they dye, and it must have kept going onto the ball. But I just thought it makes it even more special, doesn't it? So I've carried on, and I knit a whole sock. I've done a contrast heel and toe, and that's opal as well. And it's like a silver grey, and I think it's actually called silver grey. It's 5193, and it's Mittelgrau, which I think must be silver grey. And I thought that went really nicely with the shades of blue. And I also wanted to do that because I wanted to have some of this left to put into my cushions that I'm knitting. So I thought if I do heels and toes, then I should have maybe 15 grams.
Cushions, the bits and bobs?
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's really nice how it's knit up. I thoroughly enjoyed knitting it. And I knit this in about 3 days because I just didn't want to stop working on it, and I just really love it. So, and I did immediately cast on the second, although I only worked about 3 rows, but it's cast on. And, that's half the battle, isn't it? And I only stopped. I was going to carry on knitting it. I only stopped because I thought, no, I've done one. I'll stop on this one, and then I'll go and work on one of the other ones to make sure that I get these 3 pairs of socks finished, for us for Christmas Eve. So that's the yarn in the cake. It's just these really nice blues. And I'm really loving it. And I knit it on 2.5mm. It's the Chowgoo Mini Twists, which are fabulous, and I just love them. I've got a few pairs of these now, and I think I would probably knit, I think all of the socks I've got on the needles at the moment are all on mini twists. They're just fabulous. 2.5mm, 72 stitches. And I did a square heel with this. I thought I'd try a square heel for you. I don't know that I've ever done a square heel.
I don't recall.
But I just thought there's more room in this heel, I find. Thought that extra bit of room might be good. But then it does mean you have less stitches across here, doesn't it? Because it's a shorter gusset. So that kind of bothers me a little bit, that the fit is going to be okay. But I'm sure it'll be fine. So I thought I'll try it in a pair, see how it fits. And if it fits fine, then I'll carry on doing the square heel because I enjoy doing that one. So yeah, there we go.
Something interesting, I think, about socks is when you have... Well, I mean, it might be people with any size feet, but I'm just thinking with me and my running, it's really important that I found in the years that I've run now to have good quality socks because it stops you getting blisters and they do all sorts. You know, the compression in them as well is really, really useful. I mean, if you don't know, compression fabric for some reason seems to support muscles in a particular way that stops you pulling muscles and stops you getting injured when you're out running. And I've got a pair of leggings at the moment that
they're good, aren't they?
Absolutely set me, I mean, unbelievable.
It's the same with women. When I used to work in the bank in the winter, I used to wear, you know, the thick tights. I think they're like 40, 60 denier or something like that. But, you know, I used to get the ones which were...
Tighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they hug your legs, and when you're standing up and walking around all day, it really does help with your circulation.
It helps loads.
Yeah.
So, socks, I've tried a really wide range. And I remember in particular last winter, I won't be able to do it this winter because the pair of leggings that I used to pair them with, they've actually now gone away.
Right.
They've died and gone in the bin. Do you see how much I care for my leggings? You do develop a bond with these things.
Well, you do.
When you go, it's so silly. It's a piece of fabric. But this particular pair of socks, they were long. They used to come up to the knee. And I've still got them, actually. And
oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and they're like calf compression socks.
Yeah.
So come right up your leg, you know, gripping your foot in a particular way and then up your leg as well. And they were brilliant to wear. But the problem with them was, and actually thinking back, I remember this when I was at school as well, when you were having... Bryony said this the other day about putting on her game socks.
Oh, yeah.
Getting those socks on is impossible.
Yeah.
It's like a workout in itself. You know, you have to reel them up, don't you? And then get them in the toe and then peel them up. It comes back to the point that a perfectly made hand knit sock is just going to slip on and you're away. And that's why I love them so much. So I am also knitting Kea sock.
Yeah.
And it is the continuation. I didn't show any of this last time. It's because I've actually had a little break, sort of, from sock knitting, or I had done. And then I picked it up again in the last couple of weeks. I needed a break because it's been so full on. And I still feel confident and happy that I'm going to succeed in my mission to knit the 10 pairs of top-down socks from the Sock Architecture book by Laura Neal. So this is one of those pairs. It is the bootstrap sock, and it made me think of Bootstrap Bill from...
Oh, yeah.
From Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp is so great in that film.
We've been watching them because we've
Bryony's
just
never seen them.
No, Bryony's never seen them, and she's watched the first two now and really enjoyed them.
And we've played the Lego game, so she sort of, has an idea on what's going on. And she's loved it, absolutely loved it. But it's the bootstrap socks, and it's my second Balbriggan heel. I learnt so much on that first one. For example, having to reverse Kitchener on the underside. I'd never done that before. And I completely made a pig's ear of that first time round, and poor Kay had to tink back Kitchener stitch, which is a challenge.
That wasn't very fun.
But I wasn't a lover, and here is the first one. I really wasn't a lover of this on the first one, and who knows how it's going to wear. It might feel awful, and we're not going to know that until Kay has worn them a little bit and we see what's what. Knitting this a second time, it was a whole different experience, and one that I really, really enjoyed. I think it's because I've done a bit more research now with regards to the history of it, and I understand a little bit more about where it came from, the whole Queen Victoria link, and the fishing village in Ireland and them being renowned for their clothes. Also as well, the first time I did this, I wasn't particularly experienced. I mean, I'd never done it on a sock before. I'd never added, even though it's the same yarn. I've never cut my yarn and added again.
No.
And that's quite challenging, isn't it? Getting the tension right. And, you know, now doing it a second time, I did all that and I didn't have to ask.
No.
I've not asked for your help, have I? Good.
No.
That's really good. So now I'm in the process of knitting down the foot. And I didn't really enjoy that before, if you recall. And I would have loved it. I mean, it'd be so great if there was like a cable. But
cable.
you don't really get cables on socks, do you?
Yes,
do you?
you do. Yeah.
Oh, well, I should do a cabled sock at some point.
Yeah.
Sometime next year.
That would be good.
At the moment, there's no element of this which is annoying me. And, you know, that one did annoy me when I was knitting down the foot. So, you know, what am I?
Well, you've not got far to go at all.
I really don't.
You could count your rows, couldn't you? And then, because I always count rows.
Look. So,
You're nearly done.
I wonder if it was because I was...
Oh, you could wrap those up and pop them under the tree for me.
Well, maybe. Because I think I was pushing the envelope on my abilities on this one. I think that's what made me get frustrated and, you know, not enjoy it as much as I could and should have done. This second one, enjoyed it an awful lot more. And I'm looking forward to finishing it, and I'm looking forward to finding out how it fits. Because that's the key question, isn't it? Because that is just odd.
It is odd.
So, you know, if it fits lovely and Kay really likes it, then that then puts a whole new spin on it. And it makes it something then that I may well do again. But if it doesn't fit nice, then we should bin that and move on.
Well, I'd still wear them.
Yes, of course you would. Of course you would. But, you know what I mean. I wouldn't knit them again. I'm so glad I've done it, though. I'm so glad that I've knit the Balbriggan heel.
You don't know unless you try these things, do you?
No.
It doesn't hurt to try something.
Oh, no, absolutely not. And, you know, I think the skills that I've learnt through knitting that has been worth the project. That's what I've enjoyed, actually, with every one of the sock patterns that I've done so far, is with every one, there's been a sort of uplift in my skill level. And that was the point of the process, really.
Yeah.
What else is on your needles?
Well, this is not actually on my needles yet.
Well, I'm afraid you can't talk... Oh, well, no, you've knit some things.
Yes,
so
I have
I'll let
knit
you
some
off.
swatches. I've done some
There you
swatches.
go then.
So I thought I'd just talk about this. I don't... Realistically, this might not go on the needles until the new year because I don't want to stress myself out too much over sort of Christmas, and I've got plans for what I want to knit in December. But I wanted to get to a point where it was just ready to go. And it's Dan's cabled tank top.
Yay!
I showed you the pattern last time and I've since photocopied it because it's a vintage pattern and it's quite delicate and I didn't want to damage it really in and out of bags and things like that. So I've photocopied the pattern now. It's in black and white, so it's not the best picture, but it's this one, if you remember.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And I'm totally going to style my hair like that too.
I know. Well, you've not got enough hair. It's not straight enough.
No.
So I had the worst time getting gauge. I can't even tell you. Well, I can because I will. But you're supposed to get... The gauge is 18 stitches and 24 rows to 4 inches on double moss stitch, which is what's used, you know, largely for the background. You can see here it's double moss stitch. So I did several swatches with several different yarns. It calls for an Aran yarn, but obviously because it's a vintage pattern, I can't get the yarn anymore. Jarrell do still do an Aran yarn. And I did look at that one and I looked at the yardage in that. And they were all kind of natural colours and I didn't really want to do a natural colour. I wanted an actual dyed colour. But it helped me in that I could look at the yardage of that. And I think Aran wool, you know, going back a little bit, I think it was kind of thicker than maybe what is classed as Aran now, because I think people class worsted and Aran. So, for example, I did a swatch with Cascade 220 because I've got some of that in my stash. Cascade 220 is classed as a worsted stroke Aran. Well, it's not an Aran weight. And really, I think it would even probably knit to a DK weight in some patterns. But I could not get gauge. I did just a little swatch. The only way I could get gauge was using a 5mm. It calls for 4.5mm for that gauge. This was 4.5mm, and can you see how airy? I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but trust me, I can see through this, and I just didn't like that. Plus, I didn't get gauge. I had too many stitches. It was too tight. I think I had 20 stitches to 4 inches instead of 18, which is quite a lot when you multiply it up. So then I ordered a couple of other yarns to try. I tried King Cole Merino Blend Aran, and this was the swatch I did for this, and I tried 3 different needle sizes here. You can see with the, and I did block this one. I started with 4.5, I then went to 4mm for some reason. I think I got confused, and then realised I should have gone up and not down, and then this is 5mm. I did just about get gauge with 5mm, but again, you can see through the fabric. You know, you probably really can't see it, but I can see that. I can see through that fabric, and it's way too loose of a gauge. I didn't like it. And again, you know, this is more of an Aran weight than the Cascade. If I hold those two up, I've no idea whether you can tell the difference, but the green one is thicker than the orange one. So this was King Cole Aran, couldn't quite get gauge with that. So I looked again and I ordered Drops Alaska. I got a couple of balls of this. It's £1.60 for a 50-gram ball. I've never used it before. To be honest, I've kind of avoided it because I just thought that is so cheap. You know, it makes you think about the quality. But no, I said, do you know what? Because I looked at the yardage and I thought, I think that's going to be more of an Aran weight than the other ones. So I ordered a couple of balls, swatched with it. I didn't keep the swatch actually, I just swatched and then undid it. But I got gauge with this one. This is a much thicker yarn. If I mean, look at the Cascade 220 and then look at the green yarn. I think you can really tell that it's much thicker. You know, and obviously you get 220 yards with this. With this one, it's 77 yards for 50 grams. So what's that, 154 yards as opposed to 220. Yet they're both classed as Aran weight. I mean, there's something not right there, is there? So anyway, I got gauge with this. So I ordered a load more and I've got enough now to make it. So I wound up the first one into a little cake, and the colour, it's colour 45. It was something like light moss or something like that. But it's just this lovely mossy green, which, going by what Danny's wearing today, you can see that is a colour that really suits him. And I wanted a colour rather than just natural dye. I thought I'd enjoy it more with a colour. So that's the yarn I'm going to use. Drops Alaska, and do you know what? It's not that scratchy. And before I bought it, I looked at all the reviews on Ravelry, and they were all, you know, it was okay. And loads of people have used it. So I thought it must be all right. It's non-superwash, which is absolutely fine. I prefer a non-superwash for garments, if I'm honest. And it really isn't that scratchy at all. It's quite nice. And especially after it's been washed, I think it'd be lovely. So I don't know what sort of wool it is. It's just 100% wool. So there we go. That's Dan's tank top, which it might be January when that goes on the needles, but I'm all set for it.
Oh, I can't wait.
I know.
It'll be perfect actually, won't it? Because that'll be, I mean, if it goes on the needles in January, you might have been done by February, so
maybe
the end of winter I might
it's
get
a front
the chance
and a
to...
back. You just knit a front and a back.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, we'll see. It doesn't look really difficult, to be honest. The pattern doesn't look difficult. Mum says it's not difficult, so.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm also knitting a jumper.
Oh, God.
Look. And success, I managed to, without even asking,
No, you didn't ask
do
me.
the knitted on cast on to extend out for the sleeves. I just tried to use my brain. I thought, I'm going to do this. And I totally did. Of course,
Wow.
it is Mr Bakery Bear's jumper. Colonel Mustard, of course.
Colonel Mustard.
Now, I have made an error, Kay.
Have you?
Yeah, but I don't care.
Oh, right.
I'm just going to carry on.
Okay.
Shall I show you what my error is?
Yes.
Can you see at home, everyone, what I've done wrong? Can you see what I've done wrong?
I don't know. Oh, here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine, don't worry about it. You've missed a garter ridge over here
Yeah.
on his sleeve.
I just got too excited and
We'll
I carried on.
forgive you for
I carried
that.
on. I carried on purling.
Oh,
I should have
God.
changed to knitting.
To knit, yeah.
And I didn't. I just purled all the way across. But I looked at it after I'd done the row, and I just thought, you know what? That's going to give him more character.
Yeah.
So, and I thought, should I do the same thing the other end? But then I think I realised that I'd already knit past that, and I couldn't. So there's no point doing an offset line. I was worried about this, but did it, and made another little bit of progress. But made a lot more progress with his head.
Oh, hello. He's really cute.
No, he's got eyes and a nose. Yes. And he will start to come together much quicker now over the next couple of weeks. And of course, I'm doing a series on this, which is coming out all over the place actually, but it's a fairly regular once a week series.
His little green ears are cute.
Yes, well, it's all right me saying I'm doing a series. With Kelly's help, we are together doing a series. So yes, there he is, Colonel Mustard. I'm loving it actually. It's really, really good fun. You know, I didn't anticipate it being good fun at all. There are certain things which are totally outside of my comfort zone. And, you know, it's not something that I would ever see myself doing a lot of. And Kay did help me quite a lot with this, because otherwise my hands are so big and needles are so small that it would have just
getting
looked...
the eyes, because you have to use a little beading needle and...
That's not to say, though, that it's... I would definitely do it again. So, like we said last time, I think every Christmas I'll knit a toy.
So yeah, you'll have that done for Christmas, and that'll be so
Absolutely.
nice, won't it?
Yes.
And she knows that you're knitting it, but if we don't show her now any more of it...
Well, she won't buy. Well, okay.
Yeah,
We'll
I
just
mean,
do that.
she's really enjoyed seeing him come together, so...
Yeah.
Because she's so... I think she puts so much life into her toys that they're kind of real to her, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is great, you know. At the end of the day, the one thing, I think the world is a stupid place because it squashes that magic out of people.
Yeah, it does.
And it's just wrong, isn't it? Because, you know, at the end of the day, if you've got such a creative mind that you can physically, you know, give your toys characters and you know, you've got that creative mind. I remember when I was young and, you know, for me it was, I was playing with Mask, which was, they were like helicopters that changed into boats and things like that, which was fun. And Star Wars, obviously, and Transformers.
I think you just don't see as much of that these days, but just because of iPads and iPhones and all the other technology stuff.
Yeah, well,
it's not the same.
It shouldn't squash imagination.
No, it shouldn't. Absolutely,
Because, you know,
it shouldn't.
that creative element is such an important part of life, as we all know.
And she gets
Hence
so much
the knitting.
enjoyment out of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Miles more enjoyment than an iPad.
What else is on your needles?
Well, I'm knitting on something that I just found randomly and totally forgot that I'd even started it. And then I remembered knitting on it a little bit a couple of months ago. And then I remembered the reason that I hadn't any further. So I'll explain. That all sounds a bit cloak and dagger, doesn't it? It's a hat, and it's a sock head hat. And you might remember I cast this on, I think it was May. I think I cast this on my birthday. And it's now November, isn't it? And what I did was I stuck it in a little project bag and I put it in my bag, you know, that I take out and about. And I think I just totally forgot it was there. And I found it recently. I was swapping one bag to another and I just found it. And I thought, oh, I might have a little knit on that. So it's a sock head hat and I'm using this, which is Misty Alpaca's hand-painted sock yarn. And it's in the Tilt-A-Whirl colour. I haven't got the tag. I lost it ages ago because I've had this yarn for ages. And I did actually start a pair of socks with this. And I just didn't like... I seem to remember I didn't care for how it was knitting up. It kind of stripes a little bit. And I think I was worried it was going to pull when I did the heel flap, even if I put a contrast in. I just had a feeling it might pull. So I pulled that out. And I'm knitting a sock head hat because actually the sock head hat by Kelly McClure, the pattern calls for this yarn. It's the yarn that she used. So I thought, well, it should work. And it looks lovely actually. So I'm this far.
It is lovely.
Isn't it nice?
Yeah.
And it does do this swirly thing. You can see on the ribbon in particular, you can see it kind of swirls. It's not quite so obvious when you're knitting in stocking stitch because, you know, the gauge is different and everything. But it's really pretty, and I thought it looked quite festive as well. So I thought that might be nice to have that finished so I could wear it, in December. Colours are lovely. It's like reds and greens and a peachy colour and purple. So really nice. This yarn is so soft. I mean, it's a mixture of, and I'll have to see if I can remember, it's merino, silk, alpaca and nylon, I think.
Is a tilt-a-whirl
It's like a
waltzer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because people sent us pictures of it, and I'm sure that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Like a where you go around. Oh, I couldn't do that these days on a waltzer.
I've never been on one.
I think I have a couple of times. I'm not a fan.
Why would you go on something that makes you dizzy?
Oh, dizzy, and you feel sick, and it's just horrible, isn't it? I'm not a fairground ride person at all.
Not a thrill seeker.
So the reason that I think I stopped knitting on this is because it was in my bag when we went for Dan's checkup in September. And we had about an hour wait, I think, which is normal. We usually have to wait about an hour. And I was knitting on this then. And obviously we came out of that checkup and found out that there might be a problem. So I've kind of associated it with negative thoughts. So when I found it, I thought, you know what, I don't want to knit on that. But then I thought, no, because it's not the hat's fault, is it? But I do attach emotions to projects, and I think probably I'm not alone in that. And sometimes those emotions are very positive, and I'm loving it, and I might have been watching something I loved at the time, or, something like that. Or sometimes it's not so positive, and this one did have a very negative vibe. But I thought, no, I'm going to work on it. So I've just been knitting a bit on this sort of early mornings because it's just easy round and round. And I only did 3 inches of ribbing. I tend to lose the will to live after 3 inches. I just can never make it to 4 inches. I don't know why. But I think 3 inches is perfectly nice. And I look like a little elf.
Yeah, if you too much ribbon, then
Too much
leads
ribbing.
you to too floppy a hat. And
I
then,
think it does because...
unless you're going to cuff it, but you would
No,
never do that.
I would never cuff it. I don't generally cuff hats. And I usually only knit these. I'll have to check on a previous one, but I only knit them normally, I think, to 8.5 or 9 inches, something like that, because I don't like the ridiculous amount of slouch that these normally have. So I might put a pom-pom on it, because I'll have some left over, or I might use the leftovers in my cushion covers.
You need to see how slouchy it is. Because if you put a pom-pom on an already slouchy hat,
It pulls
that's
it
when
down.
it does start to look
I
really
mean, I might
idiotic.
not put the pom-pom on because I like having leftovers because, I put them into all kinds of things. Now, I did start knitting this on a Chowgu 16-inch 3mm. For every other thing I've knit with Chowgu needles, I've loved them. I don't like the short ones. And the reason I didn't like it is because your knitting is this shape when you're knitting on it. And I found that really awkward because if you look at this one, it's kind of down and it makes the knitting very simple. Because this was sticking out like that, and it's a stiff cable, so that's why it was sticking out. And also I think the needles might be a bit longer. The needle tips. I just found the knitting of it not as pleasant. So that was the other thing I did. I changed the Chowgu to a Knit Pro Nova. And historically this is the needle I've knit all of my sock heads on, and I really love it for sock head hats. For this project it's perfect because all you're doing is knitting, and it's really nice to have that slide when all you're doing is going round and round. So I find the Knit Pro Nova perfect. And they're really inexpensive, so win-win really. So I'm going to carry on with that, and I'd like to get it done in the next couple of weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks, but I'm not in any huge rush. It's just a nice, easy thing to work on. Dan Jones, I don't think I've said it. What is that all about?
Oh dear. That's just not cricket. Well, at least you
Dan
remembered.
Jones.
Let's give her some space, and let's make this a good one.
Dan Jones.
Yes.
What's on your notes?
I need a leg feel. You can just do the leg feel on its own if you like. Oh, yes. That'll do.
That'll do, pig.
That'll do, pig. Look! I've been honestly going
Oh,
like
it's
crazy.
nearly finished.
I mean, like crazy.
It's
Look,
nearly finished.
look. So at the bottom.
Oh, be careful.
I'm getting
You've
knotted
got
up.
2 needles on the go here.
I've never done a project
We
where I've
should
got
have
2
put
needles on
end
the go.
stoppers on those, really.
So look, there is ribbing
Yeah.
on the end. Now I'm going to do a load more ribbing, but I'm on to my last ball of yarn. I've never knit a project with 7 balls of yarn in it before.
No.
So I'm on to my final ball of this rather lovely
Yeah. It's the Rowan.
Aran.
Was it Rowan?
Yes.
Yes.
That
Pure
you
wool
can't get
Aran.
anywhere.
It's Rowan pure wool Aran in the antique red colour.
So what I did was I finished off the 6th ball that I was on.
Yeah.
And it just went on and on and on. I've
It
never got
lasted
so many
ages.
rows
Yeah,
out of the
we were
tiniest little
surprised,
bit.
actually, weren't we?
Like, come on, finish. I was like, please, please. And then, yes, I got to the end of that ball and I've done a few rows of ribbing. Now, the one thing that we're going to do is, no, I'm going to do, because I've done all this. I naturally default still to we. I'm going to knit a long rib. The pattern doesn't
No,
sort
it's
of
not
push you to do a
particularly
long
long.
rib, but I'm going to knit as long a rib as yarn I have.
Yeah.
So what I've done is I've finished the 6th ball and then
We're
with
doing the
7th ball,
sleeves.
do the sleeves first.
And then whatever we've got left, he can finish off.
Exactly right.
So that we're not then panicking.
Yeah. So
And the sleeves are tiny.
they are tiny, but do you know what? It's fiddly, this.
It's very fiddly.
Oh, good. I'm glad you said that. Because I never know if it's
You
mine.
know my opinion on sleeves knit like this when it's attached to the garment. It's very fiddly. But luckily you've only got, I think it's something like 16 rows and then a bit of ribbing. So,
Yeah. It's not fiddly to a point which makes me not want to do it.
it is me.
Well, it doesn't mean at all.
It'd be fine on that because I would think it's only a little bit and I can knit that. I'd be able to do that in an hour or so probably.
And the size of this, I think we're cool.
Yeah,
because
we
of my
did some
gauge.
we did some extra increases. Yeah,
I
and
messed up
it
early
meant
on.
that the sleeve is bigger, but do you know what? It'll be fine.
Because the pattern is confusing, I carried on increasing when I shouldn't have.
We were physically laughing. I'm not lying when I say this. Dan read out the instructions, and we were actually laughing.
It's
at the
just nuts.
instructions. I've never read anything like it.
But you see, clearly, she's a clever woman because
The garment's beautiful, you know, and I've knit it, and the finished garment is absolutely lovely.
so maybe Picasso was dreadful at teaching people how to
Maybe
paint.
he was, yeah.
I don't think you should assume, should you, that because you can put together a great design, don't assume that you then be able to put it down on paper in a way
Yeah.
that is conducive to someone reading it and not falling off the bed laughing. Thank goodness. I've seen a lot of people say, and thank you so much for being so lovely about it, saying how lovely it looks and they must add it to their queue. I must say to you, there is not a way possible that I would have got through this without having an experienced knitter with me. And there was even points where you were like,
And I've knit this
"What?"
before, but it was a few years ago that I knit this.
So
and to
do
be honest,
bear in mind.
I looked at these instructions and I said, how did I even do this?
But there it is.
Isn't it lovely? It's going to be more like a tunic because I really like that length of, to wear with leggings or thick tights.
And there is
I'm going to wear it on Christmas Day.
the lovely
I'll be
sleeve.
cooking the turkey
Look
in
at
it.
that sleeve. Do you know what? I'm feeling a well of pride.
Yeah, and we did start these sleeves off, didn't we, on Magic Loop?
Which, you know what? This sleeve has been knit on about 5 different needles.
Yeah. And in the end, I said to him, do you know what? Let's just try a 16-inch and see if the stitches, because we had
I'm
more
so glad.
stitches
I'm so glad.
than our size called for. I said it might fit on, and it does.
I'm really glad about this.
Yeah, and it does make the whole thing a lot easier than having to wrangle Magic Loop or DPNs.
And she doesn't say to do it magic loop.
No,
she
she
says to do
doesn't.
it on a small
Yeah.
circular. But the thing is, though, how small a circular
Exactly.
could you go
well,
to?
I've used a 12-inch. You can get
Right.
12-inch, but I didn't have a 12-inch in that size.
It's going to depend, though, so much, isn't it, on gauge and all sorts, isn't it? On
No, it's how many stitches you've got.
Right.
Because if the stitch count gets, below a sort of certain level, there's not enough stitches to fit comfortably around a 16-inch,
Right.
which is why on the cardigan I just knit I used a 12-inch, and that I found that to be definitely the most comfortable. I didn't enjoy it still, but it was a million times better than having to magic loop or DPNs, I found.
It's such fun though. And you know, now the quest begins for what am I going to knit next. And I'll not lie to you, I'm really, really quite anxious about this.
Well, he's so specific. He wants something, right? He wants to knit another garment. He wants it to be in the round, like this one. And he enjoys cables. So something similar to this, you know. It doesn't matter if it's long sleeves, I suppose, because if we don't want to knit the sleeves, we can just do short ones again. It's this kind of thing that I'm looking for, and I've been searching, and the main problem I've been finding is that a lot of them are knit in pieces, and he doesn't want that. You know, he wants it to be in the round, so it needs to be like a jumper rather than a cardigan.
Yeah.
And I'm just having awful problems. So if you see anything, then let me know.
Please do,
Yeah,
because I'm really, really worried
weight,
about this.
You know, worsted weight or Aran weight.
This is going to leave such a void in my knitting. You know, I've said before about how I've got specific bags for specific jobs, and this is my garment bag.
Oh, I made you that one. It's lovely,
Yeah,
that one.
and I need a garment to go in this bag. So please help my bag.
And I've not got the wool
Find
or
something
anything.
to
I'd need
live
to
in it.
order the yarn. Well, I don't, you know, obviously I need to find a pattern before I order yarn.
Yes, calm down, dear.
No. But it's stressing me because you're like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do?
else is on your needles?
Is another sock. Yay! And this one is in my lovely Dobby bag. Yay, from Denise. I saw she was making some Christmas Dobby bags the other day, which was super cute. And I put one of because there's some lovely little progress keepers in there, and I put one of them as a zipper pull. And it's the sorting, I think it's the sorting hat anyway. And I'm using, this is Bryony's Christmas Eve pair of socks. And it's London House Yarns. I bought this recently, you might remember. And this one is Christmas at Grimmauld Place. She chose this one to be the first one that she wanted.
Maybe the bootstrap socks should be your Christmas Eve socks.
Well, it could be. I was knitting a pair that I was going to use as mine, but...
That's rubbish.
All right, okay.
Well, you can't knit yourself a pair of Christmas Eve socks.
Well, I didn't want to ask you because I know you've got loads on.
What?
And I just thought I'd use
One of my
pair.
main projects for this year is knitting loads of socks.
Right. Well, I'll have those then.
Are you sure?
They're gold. They're for Christmas.
Always.
So that's the yarn. It's on her sparkle base. I was just looking to see if her sparkle base was called anything. It's not. It's just a silver stellina, and it came with a mini. And this is where I'm up to. I've done the leg and I'm ready for the heel on the first sock. Oh my goodness! Look at that. Look how lovely those colours look.
They look stunning.
Isn't that fabulous? And she used there was a still shot of where they're all around the table having
Yes, I
Christmas
know.
dinner, and she's picked colours from that. Isn't it beautiful? Oh, it's just lovely. And I knit this in about 2 days or something, and then I stopped because I thought that's at a point where it's easy to show, because I wanted to show you the yarn, and then I'll carry on. So I've got, this is the mini that comes with it, and it matches perfectly that kind of, it's kind of like a greeny greyish colour, just there. And it's just lovely. It's so lovely to knit. You know, it's lovely yarn, and the stripes are so fun. The colours are just beautiful. And I think there's 8 stripes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, there's 8 colours. And it's just so pretty. And this I'm doing on 2.25mm, 64 stitches. I need to remember though to knit this one a little bit longer in the foot, because I think Bryony's feet have grown a bit recently, because I've noticed that on some of the hand knit socks she's been wearing, the heel is kind of slipping under her foot. So I'll knit it maybe 5 rows longer than I normally would. This one, I think this is the one I'm going to work on next to get the first one finished. And then I'll go back and finish Dan's Opal and then finish this one. Or I might just finish this pair. I don't know. I'll see what I feel like. But I'm just loving it. The yarn's just so beautiful. And it's so sparkly. It's just gorgeous. I love it. And I'm not normally a self-striping fan, I'll be honest. Not normally. And I think the reason mainly is that even when you put in a contrast heel, the stripes get that little bit thinner, don't they, when you're doing the gusset. But since I've been doing the square heel, that means you've got not so long of a gusset, and it means you've got sort of less stitches across that gusset area. Then it doesn't interfere with the stripe as much as like a French heel, for example. That's what I'm going to do on this. I'm going to do a heel flap and a square heel turn. So if you've got a skein of this in your stash and you've been hoarding it, because I haven't hoarded this at all, which is not my nature. Really, I had it maybe a week or so and then I've cast it on. It's just gorgeous.
Has anybody seen that advent calendar that is currently available from Target in America? And it's a sock advent calendar.
Oh right, I haven't seen this.
And well, it's only available in America. And you get...
How have you seen it though?
Because there's a thing called the internet, Kay.
But how did you know it was there to search?
Because you told me to search for advent calendars.
Oh right, yeah.
So I did.
Oh.
And it's 12 pairs of socks.
12 pairs of socks?
Dobby socks.
No.
Yeah. Dobby's on it.
Right.
So I don't know quite how it works, but, you know, because an advent
it's like
calendar
the 12
normally...
days of Christmas.
Well, but no, because of course the 12 of Christmas, as you always make this mistake, they run after Christmas.
Oh right, they do. So it must be there's 12 pairs, but there's actually 24 socks.
Oh, one a day. That would be cool.
So you could only have one sock on and the next day you get the pair.
That's better than a sweet.
Maybe that is the point.
That's better than a sweet, isn't it?
Maybe that is the point if they're Dobby socks. Because he did just have that one sock, didn't he?
That'd be so cool. But, I mean, you know, we've just spoken about how hand-knit socks rule. And obviously that is going to be full of...
That's not hand-knit socks.
But, I mean, it would be
you
quite...
You could totally do that yourself, though, couldn't you? You could, and I know there are lots of knit-alongs to do Christmas socks.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time
Oh, how
to
exciting.
go on our final new adventure of the year. And remember, at this time of year, you have to really pick your days. And unfortunately...
You got a lovely day, actually.
Well, we got a lovely day.
Yeah, it was cold, but it was nice.
I went and shot this solo because what you will always find at this time of year is that quality days are not at a maximum. But when you do catch the day right, it's unbelievable. Because, of course, the winter, it must be the low pressure, or is it winter? Certainly here you find very still, crisp, cold days with lovely sun. And that's what I got. But the reason why I had to go shoot it solo was because a cold, crisp day where it's not raining and windy is a perfect day for Kay to do dyeing.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, I had to go do this solo, otherwise there'd have been none of that wonderful figure pudding in the shop.
No.
So let's go on our final new adventure. 2017.
The rays of the searchlight were kept fixed on the harbour mouth across the East Pier, and men waited breathless. The wind suddenly shifted to the northeast, and the remnant of the sea fog melted in the blast. And then, between the piers, leaping from wave to wave as it rushed at headlong speed, swept the strange ship before the blast with all sails set, and she gained the safety of the harbour. The searchlight followed her, and a shudder ran through all who saw her, as they realised that the ship, as if by miracle, had found the harbour, unsteered save by the hand of a dead man. The schooner paused not, but rushing across the harbour, pitched herself on the accumulation of sand and gravel washed by many tides and many storms. But then, strangest of all, the very instant the shore was touched, an immense dog sprang up on deck from below, running forward, jumped from the bow onto the sand, making straight for the steep cliff, where the churchyard hangs over the laneway to the east pier so steeply that some of the tombstones have fallen to the sea beneath, and the dog disappeared into the darkness, which seemed intensified just beyond the focus of the searchlight.
I took those words from one of the most famous books in the world. This is the actual beach that the Demeter, the doomed ship, landed on.
And these are the famous 199 steps which take you up the cliff which the dog sprang up.
That dog was Count Dracula, and he was making his way right here to St. Mary's Churchyard.
This is one of the most unbelievable places I have ever visited, with graves stretching out as far as the eye can see. These are all past residents of the Yorkshire coastal town of Whitby, and that raises a question.
Why was this beautiful little fishing port chosen for one of the main locations for one of the most famous horror books in the world? These are the new adventures of the Bakery Bears, and it's time for us to take a walk with Mr Stoker. In 1890, Abraham Stoker will have walked down this path. He was tired. He was business manager for world-famous actor Henry Irving, and he just returned, or he was in the process of returning, from a grueling tour of Scotland. Now, Henry Irving, Abraham's boss, knew that Abraham needed a rest, and he told him he had the perfect place for him to go for a little holiday. He said, "Why don't you go to Whitby? I went there once with the circus." Abraham didn't want to, but he said, "If you send for my wife and my young son, then I'll go." And he did, and he came here.
Welcome to 6 Royal Crescent, Whitby. This was Mrs Vesey's guest house, and in 1890 it was quite a chic spot. Just think a moment. This was a time before international travel became the norm, but Victorian people were just like so many of us. A holiday was feeling the sand between your toes, and if you were lucky, the sun on your back. So Bram stopped here on his journey back south from Scotland and waited for his family to arrive and their holiday to properly begin. But remember, this was of course late Victorian England, and even with the recent arrival of the railways, it would take nearly a week for his family to arrive. So all he could do was wait.
Every morning, old Mrs Vesey liked to clean Bram's room, so he'd take a walk down into town. This walk that I'm doing right now. And I'm trying to put myself in his head as he took that walk on that August morning in 1890, because what was about to happen to him was going to shape the rest of his life.
Whitby had been founded in 656 AD with the formation of its abbey, and it had grown steadily every year since. This is one of the oldest streets in the whole town, with houses dating from the 13th and 14th centuries. Now, over the years, fishing had become the town's main industry, and by 1753 it was one of the busiest fishing ports in the country. It was only natural then that whaling would take place, and by 1833, 55 huge ships were operating from the harbour. As Bram walked that August morning, these are the sights he would have seen, and what I find so striking is so much of the locations look the same, so we really are walking with him. But by the time he had arrived in 1890, the big ships had got so big they couldn't fit in the port anymore, so they'd headed up the coast to the larger ports.
But as the ships left, the railway arrived, and as Bram took his fateful walk that morning, he was experiencing something similar to Monte Carlo.
In 1843, Whitby railway station was built. The town's geographical location had previously kept away tourists, but now rich Victorian families arrived in search of sun and sand. With them, they brought money to spend, and investment in the town started to grow. A huge array of posh hotels had sprung up to service their needs. Bram Stoker himself would stay here at the Royal Hotel in his many subsequent visits to the town. And as he strolled by on his way down to the harbour in 1890, this would have resembled and even bettered the best hotels in London. But as he walked, something in the sights he saw must have inspired him. He'd recently read stories of the Carpathian Mountains, and he'd become obsessed with the mythological stories of vampires.
And I like to believe that as soon as he turned that corner behind me, around the Royal Hotel, and he took in the view, the inspiration for Dracula took hold, because before him
lay a sight that quite possibly inspired the writing of his masterpiece. For there in front of him lay a beautiful beach and a breathtaking church. Here were two of the key locations for the story he was just about to write.
And you have to wonder how quickly he made his way here, to the churchyard that stands proud over the town of Whitby. I like to think it was the same day, and here too cast its spell on Bram. Let's take more words from Dracula and the heroine, Mina Murray.
Right over the town is a most noble ruin of immense size, full of beautiful and romantic bits. Between it and the town there is another church, the parish one, round which is a big graveyard, all full of tombstone. This, to my mind, is the nicest spot in Whitby, for it lies right over the town and has a full view of the harbour and all the way up the bay. In one place, part of the stonework of the grave stretches out over the sandy pathway far below. There are walks with seats beside them through the churchyard, and people go and sit there all day looking at the beautiful view and enjoying the breeze. I shall come and sit here often myself and work. Indeed, I'm writing now with my book on my knee and listening to the talk of three old men who are sitting beside me. The harbour lies below me with, on the far side, one long granite wall stretching out into the sea with a curve outwards at the end of it, in the middle of which is a lighthouse.
Just look. He's describing the view exactly.
It's more like a guidebook than gothic horror, but that's what made this book so groundbreaking. He set terrifying fiction slap bang in the middle of the world we all live in, which gave it realism. He even got the name of Dracula's first victim from one of the gravestones. No one had written fiction quite like this before.
But it wasn't just that. Bram wrote the book in a way which I still think is current today. Now, I read this book for the first time researching this show, and I was really taken aback with how he put it together. Because what he does is, rather than write a normal narrative, which you would expect in a story where it starts and it finishes, it's a series of diary entries. So it might be a diary entry from Jonathan Harker, who's the hero, or Mina Murray, who's the heroine. And actually what he does, which is so clever with Mina Murray, is it's her journal. So within a journal, of course, you could have paper clippings, and he does that. So again, he's telling the story in a way which is unbelievably current, and it makes it more real. Now, I'm sat on the beach. I found a perfect little spot, and the hotel which we walked past earlier on the show, the Royal Hotel, is literally just up there, and Mrs Vesey's boarding house is just behind that. So I'm a stone's throw from where Bram stayed, and you can rest assured, because this is his nearest beach, that he would have walked along that pier, he would have come down these steps, and he would have played here with his wife and with his son, guaranteed. So this could not be a better spot than to have a little knit. And while we're doing that, I think I should score it, shouldn't I? First of all, for interestability. And this is where it gets tricky, because this story is intensely interesting. And Whitby Abbey, which many people maybe would have expected that we would have gone to, but that would be one of our favourite places to knit. That's somewhere where we know. If you remember, in this series, it's new adventures. We're going to places we've never experienced before. Now, Whitby Abbey, which is way over that way, that is like super interesting. There's loads of history. It's exactly like places like Fountains Abbey and Revo Abbey. Whitby as a town, it is interesting. It's really interesting, but you've got to dig deep for it. What's happened over the course of time, as I get on with a bit of knitting, is it has become quite commercialised. So there's an awful lot of arcades where you can go in and you can play games, you can play fruit machines and things. There's lots and lots of fish and chip shops. So it's a real tourist venue, and I suppose it was back in 1890. But the problem is, as time has gone on, those things that were there in 1890 have been updated, and things have been changed. So for interestability, for this story, I mean, it would score really highly. But as a town, I think for interestability, given how it is now, it's probably going to be about a 6. But what about for knitability? Well, there are tons and tons and tons of places to sit down and have a knit. There's loads of seats, there's beaches, there's absolutely loads of places. And I would say that makes it pretty much perfect for knitting. So for knitability, I think we would have to give it an 8. So far, it's a pretty good score.
But hold on a minute. We've got a picnic to source and a story to finish.
So join us later in the show when we'll be finding out how Bram Stoker named his amazing book. And we'll also be going to the shop where Bram stopped for a coffee on his walk that morning, and I'll be buying 2 of their most famous delicacies.
Oh my goodness, what a truly special visit, because Whitby hasn't historically been one of our favourite places.
No.
I think it's a mixture of the fact that it is unbelievably touristy, and if you go in the summer and the school holidays, it's absolutely
Nightmare.
packed.
Don't do it.
And it's also really difficult to get parked, and of course you could catch the train, and that probably might be the way to do it, depending on what that runs like.
I didn't realise it had got a train station.
Yes, it absolutely has a railway station. So, you could catch the train. That might be nice, actually. Train into York and then York up to Whitby. That might be
so you have to change trains?
Yeah, you can't get a direct train to Whitby.
Well, I don't know. I didn't even know it had a train station.
It's not on the main line.
Oh,
but,
it should be.
I was stunned. And that's been the point of this New Adventures, is, finding these stories in places that we'd never been to before. And, I'm walking in areas which have been under our nose, but we've never looked. What I love about things like this is walking in the footsteps of someone who's been inspired, because I get inspiration from that. And so what an amazing first part of the story. So second part of the story, I'm going to be going to a rather special bakery, getting some very lovely things and having those for my picnic. And we'll also be finding out how Bram Stoker named his book, and it's a really interesting, and it's so interesting that all this happened in such a short space of time as well. But, as you've said many times with designs, when inspiration hits you, things tend to come together
very
quite quickly.
That's how it works with me, normally.
Yeah. Neil, to celebrate the end of the first season of The New Adventures of the Bakery Bears, we've done a very special... Every episode we've put out a special edit for our gold and platinum patrons.
Yeah.
And we've done an extra special one this time. So that will be published on Saturday. And if you are a gold or a platinum patron, I would urge you to watch it, because we've done a lovely extended thing at the end, which we've never done before, which I hope you really enjoy, and I'm sure that you will.
And I helped with the voiceovers.
She did. So whilst Kay may not have been there on the filming, on the gold edition of A Walk with Mr Stoker, Kay is with us too, which is great. And she also brings me a cup of tea partway through.
I did, yeah.
And a double decker. We've got part 2 to watch yet, and part 2 will be with you just a little bit later on in this show. Kay Jones, what's off your needles? Didn't say your name. Sorry.
All right. I have 2 things.
Wow.
How exciting.
It's very exciting.
I did think it was only going to be one thing, and then I suddenly finished this other thing. I was like, oh, I finished that. That's marvellous. But the first thing I finished was the pair of socks that I spoke about last time, the ones that will be a gift for our patrons for Christmas. So this is the All Is Calm socks. And these are lovely and finished. Yay!
And these form part of our Advent calendar this year.
Yes, they do.
But not only that, it's the first, of course, of the Platinum collection.
Yes.
Which is then, there's another pattern released in spring, autumn.
Summer and autumn.
That's it.
Yeah, so this is the winter pattern, if you like, which, as we said before, this pattern will be free to all of our patrons on Christmas Eve.
Yes, so if you're a patron on the 24th of December, as part of the Advent calendar, you will get this.
You will get this. But then the subsequent patterns from that collection will be for our gold and platinum patrons. These are all done, and I knit these in my yarn, and it was a mermaid's tail, Tale, the colourway, and it would work both ways actually, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like a story of a mermaid. And it's this lovely, I thought it looked wintry, which I think it does. It's like pale blues, pale pinks and lilacs. and it's got this lovely, it's like a ribbed pattern with a little bit of lace in. It's really simple and really nice to knit. I really, really enjoyed knitting these, so I hope all of our patrons really enjoyed them as well. So they're all finished.
Lovely.
And then the second thing, I finished the Newt Scamander scarf. How exciting! I was so thrilled. I was knitting on it because I've been knitting on this in bed at night, and it's kind of got a bit like, oh, you know, just going round and round, because I've been doing it magic loop and I didn't really enjoy it. And then I got to a point and I said to you the other night, I think I've only got one more grey stripe to do, and I put it around my neck and he's like, yeah, that's long enough. I was so thrilled. And I did have enough yarn. I was worried that I would run out of one of the yarns. I didn't. I've got about 10 grams of that left, I think. So look, here it is. Oh, and tassels. Yes, we've got tassels. I'll put it on, shall I? Oh, I feel like I'm Newt. Isn't it lovely? And it goes down to, stand up, it goes down to my waist, which I think is about where it came to, because he just wears it like this, doesn't he? And then he has that blue coat on top. I think it's perfect. The colours, I think it genuinely looks like the one in the suitcase.
It does.
I'm just so thrilled. So I used fingering weight double, and it's on my project page on Ravelry, the notes for this, and it says what yarn I used as well, and stitch count and everything. So if you wanted to replicate it, I didn't use a pattern, I just looked at the photo and kind of counted the stitches, and I think I added a couple more stitches to what I thought was on the pattern, because I had a feeling that the yarn that they used might have been a bit thicker. So that's all done, and the tassels are really sweet, aren't they, look? And I did them quite long because I thought Bryony would like that, quite long tassels. So that will be going into the suitcase over with the pyjamas. And
what else do you have to get for that?
I've got to get a map.
Oh, we need to look, don't we?
Oh, we were in there today.
Yeah.
But it needs to be a map of New York City.
Well, we should look there, because we should just look there.
I need to try and I'd love to find a vintage map of New York City, but I don't know that I'll be able to. But I need a map of New York. I've got the pyjamas, I've got the handkerchief, I've now got the scarf. We've got a magnifying glass that we can put in there, because there's a magnifying glass. I just need a little pair of binoculars. And I think there are a few other things in the suitcase. You can see there are a few other things, but I can't tell what they are. So, I mean, if anybody knows, there's something on the right-hand side as you look at it that looks like it's made of leather. And I suppose it could be like a toiletry bag, or it could be, I don't think it looks like a pair of slippers. And then I think there was something on the other side that I wasn't sure what it was. I have searched on the internet, you know, for contents of the suitcase, and you just get photos of it. And then you also get links to people making their own sort of suitcases and things like that. So if anybody does know what else was in the suitcase, then please let me know. I don't think I'll get it done. I was thinking of knitting a pair of socks and putting that in there, but I don't think I'll get that done, because I've got to sort of renovate the case as well. I haven't started work on that, so I need to start that. But yeah, I mean, it's going well, and I think she'll just love it.
Pardon my intense knitting, I'm just onto the ribbing on the sleeve.
I think we'll all pardon you with some intense knitting. I don't think any of us mind that, do we?
So ribbing has commenced. It's time for us to go back to Whitby. We've got so much to do. We've got a picnic to have. We've got to first of all get the food we're going to have for said picnic. We need to find out how Bram Stoker named his book. And we need to give Whitby a score and plot it on our leaderboard. So let's go back to Whitby for more of a walk with Mr Stoker.
You join me back on Bram Stoker's fateful walk that summer of 1890, and en route, he stopped for a coffee. 25 years before Bram arrived in Whitby, this fine young lady was selling her baked goods from a cart in the street. This is Elizabeth Botham, and as her reputation grew, she bought a shop. And this is it. By 1890, it was a bustling and rather beautiful tea rooms here on Skinner Street. And this is what the tea room looked like around the time of Bram's visit. I can just imagine him sat drinking his tea deep in thought, lost in a world which he never expected to find on his holiday in Whitby. Bothams continued to thrive throughout the 19th and into the 20th century, and what I love is that it's still owned and run by the same family. Now, I don't have time for tea, but I do have time to pick up one of Botham's most famous cakes, and a pork pie too, I think, all set for my picnic later on in the show. 5 days passed with Bram making the same walk every morning down to the harbour and beyond. Every day his story must have grown a little more as everything began to fall into place. He said when interviewed in later years that he had based the character of Dracula on the man who had sent him on his holiday to Whitby, Henry Irving. Here is a rare photo of them together around the time Dracula was first published. Now, don't panic. Irving was not a vampire, but he was, according to anyone who knew him, self-absorbed and profoundly manipulative. He also loved to cultivate rivalries between his many followers. To remain in Henry Irving's inner circle required careful courting of his fickle affections. Now, to those of you who have read Dracula, you'll notice some distinct similarities between our actor and our Transylvanian count. In the space of just a few days, on his walks down to this harbour, Bram had the makings of a story and someone to base his lead character on.
But Bram still needed a title for his book, and he would find it just up there, next door to the Marine Hotel, in the old public library.
Clearly inspired, our author Bram Stoker is now on the hunt for a name for his vampire, and he wandered into the town's library. Fate led him to a book recording the experiences of William Wilkinson, British ambassador to Romania. Wilkinson's book wrote of the history of a 15th century prince who liked to impale his enemies on wooden stakes. His name was Vlad Tepes, but he was known locally as the Son of the Dragon. And the old Romanian translation for Son of the Dragon? It's Dracula. Our novel has a name, and one of the 20th century's most famous characters is born. How interesting that not only did Bram take the name of Dracula, but he also stole the idea of dispatching enemies with stakes. And just look, this is the site of the Old Town Library. How fitting that the location that gave Dracula its name and inspired our author now is the home of Whitby's very own Dracula experience.
Just a few days later, Bram was told of a story of a shipwreck which had landed right here on this beach just 5 years before Bram had arrived in 1890.
This is an actual picture of the Dimitri, a ship which sailed from Narva in Russia, and it crash-landed on Tate Hill Beach in 1895, 5 years before Bram's arrival and his inspiration for Dracula. He rearranged the name to Demeter, he had her sailing from Narva, and we have the fictional vessel which carries Dracula to Whitby. Once again, he's based horror on reality. How tantalising it must have been to read his book when it was published in 1897. Here was a fictional story with some of its key moments linked directly to real destinations and real events. Whitby was a thriving tourist attraction already, so many of Dracula's readers would know the town or at least know someone who had visited. Its links to reality would, I'm sure, have led many a Victorian lady to wondering, what if the story is true? Now, the book itself wasn't an immediate bestseller, but its reviews were unstinting in their praise. The Daily Mail, one of the biggest newspapers of the day, ranked Bram Stoker's writing prowess far above Mary Shelley, Edgar Allan Poe and Emily Bronte. But as the years progressed following its initial publication, Dracula's popularity grew beyond recognition. Bram Stoker had given birth to a character which still fascinates us today. As of 2017, approximately 235 films featured Dracula in a major role. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm ready for some food, so I think we should pop back to the beach and see what I picked up in Botham's Bakery.
Yes, It's finally time for a picnic, and I've come back to my lovely stone on the beach because it is the perfect spot for said picnic. And do you know what's interesting about Dracula is it was initially put out there as a play, and of course Bram wanted his great friend Henry Irving to play the lead, and Henry did. He did one performance and then he refused. He came off stage, he said, "I never want to do that again. I never even want to see that again." And I just wonder if it's because he saw so many similarities with his own character. But it is time for a picnic, and I have been to, of course, the place where Bram Stoker went for his cup of tea or coffee, who knows what he had, when he first came and stayed here in 1890. I've been to both of them. And what have I got? Well, and I'm actually really hungry. Oh no, it feels quite oily actually. Yeah, it is, it's proper oily. But oh no, look at that. There's loads of fat on the bottom of that. Let's give it a go though. Do you know what that is? That's actually apple sauce, which makes it really interesting. I thought it was fat, but it's not. It's really nice. There's no fat on that at all. So I completely take it back. Crumbs. And there are loads and loads of really good places to get food. There's a really famous fish and chip shop called the Magpie Cafe, which Kay loves. I've actually never been in. And there was even a queue today, and it's middle of November. And what do I have for pudding after my rather delicious pork and apple pie? It's a Yorkshire curd tart, and I'm going to use this as a napkin. Wow, that really did. It was full of applesauce, which I suppose is really good. So, these are one of my favourite things. It's a curd tart, so it's got like a custard in it, but it's cooked quite a lot, and it's also got currants in there too. I'll bite in and I'll show you. That's what the inside looks like. And it's quite lemony, and lemon's just one of my favourite things. So that is actually really, really delicious. You see, Mr. Seagull, you mustn't feed them, otherwise they attack. So, picnicability, that delicious curd tart. There is literally everything here that you could want. So fish and chips, or if you wanted a pie from the pie shop, or the sandwiches, or there's restaurants, it's all absolutely there and on your doorstep. So it's got to score highly. I think a 9 for picnicability. Because also as well, you could come down here if you brought your own food, you come down here and have a picnic. So, score for picnicability, it's most definitely a 9. So we've got 9 for picnicability, we've got 8 for knitability, and we've got 6 for interestability, which gives us a grand total score of 23. Let's plot it on the New Adventures leaderboard. And that's actually our final adventure for 2017, so it's the complete leaderboard for this season.
And so we reach the end of our story. We're a morning walk through a beautiful harbour town, led to arguably the most famous Gothic horror story in the world.
But we've also reached the end of our series, and what a journey it's been.
From the footsteps of Hadrian at Tynemouth Castle to a search for the Druids at Brimham Rocks. Uncovering the story of St Godric at Finkel. To tea with Mr Darcy at Pemberley. This year we've uncovered stories of monsters, monks, hermits and lost cities. And we're only just getting warmed up.
But 2018 will see our greatest new adventures yet, as we go exploring the gardens of Capability Brown, we go searching for the manor house of Braveheart, we go looking for penguins in Yorkshire, and we uncover the real story of Peter Rabbit. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon for more new adventures.
Wow.
Wow.
So that is the end of season 1 of the New Adventures of the Bakery Bears. Yes, as you will have caught just there, and Kay has no idea about this, I've already teasered season 2.
Oh my goodness, has he really?
We will be going in search of Braveheart's manor house. Oh yes, we've never been to a medieval manor house
We're
before.
not going to Scotland again, are we?
We're certainly not, but you need to remember that Braveheart and Robert the Bruce invaded south.
Oh, right.
Quite dramatically south, which is then the reason why Edward I then went up and absolutely battered them.
Right.
So we'll be looking for his manor house, and it is the most stunning looking place ever, so can't wait to show you that. But the one I'm most excited about is when we go searching for penguins in Yorkshire.
Oh, yeah.
What is that
I know
about?
about this one.
But forget all that. What about the real story of Peter Rabbit?
Goodness me. Have you seen there's going to be a new film coming out?
Next year.
Yeah, I mean, it looks fun. It definitely looks fun. Well, but we'll see. With these iconic things, you never know, do you?
No, you don't know. But yeah, I mean, it really does look fun. And actually, we saw the trailer for that when we went to see Paddington 2.
We did.
And what a great film that was.
That was a great film. However, I've never been in a cinema that was so full in my entire life.
It was packed, which is a surprise.
It was causing me a huge amount of anxiety.
Yeah.
It's like, all these people. Oh, I can't. And there was people sat next to me. Oh, I don't like that.
But of course, we've just published, and I completely forgot, we've published our final leaderboard, so now everyone knows the 2 places which go onto our favourite places to knit list. And that is, of course, we established to start the show, Corbridge. But the second place is, of course, Kay, where is it? It's Finkel.
Oh, of course.
Finkel Priory.
Of course. We must go back there.
Well, we have been back.
When the weather improves and goes.
We know when something has become a favourite place to
And I
knit
shan't
because
sit on
we go
some
back.
wet moss this time.
Big mistake.
I sat on this patch of wet moss. I didn't know it was wet. Stood up. My entire jean area at the back was soaking wet. I had to sit in the car. We've got leather seats in the car as well, so it just stayed wet.
What I must say on a personal note with regards to the New Adventures is how much more I've enjoyed New Adventures to favourite place to knit.
Yeah.
And the reason being is, on a personal level, we're discovering new things. And, you know, we all have our favourite places where we like to go and do things. And it was lovely to share that with you when we first started doing the podcast. But now what I'm really getting enthused about, and Whitby really showed this in the most succinct way. Whitby's actually 3rd on the leaderboard, so
right.
that's where it should be.
Yeah,
because it would never be somewhere where we would go regularly.
No,
because
but
the journey
it
there.
looked lovely when you went because it wasn't too busy.
Go in the off season.
Yeah,
Do
definitely.
not walk where everyone else walks. Turn away from the people. Have you got the people? Yes, they're down there. Because you'll be up in the parts of the town which deserve your attention. Because it is absolutely stunning.
Lovely.
But yes, our 2 winners from this season is Finkel and Corbridge. And yet, what a wonderful journey it's been. And we had a little recap there at the end of the show, which Kay hasn't seen either. So that was lovely to sort of recap everything. Now, production begins in earnest on... Who's Ernest?
Who's Ernest?
On the Bakery Bears Advent Calendar, which begins on December 1st. Get ready for a trailer for that round about Thanksgiving. But also, production begins in earnest on the knitting history show. Dan's History of Knitting. I'll get the name right eventually. And the first episode of that will be coming your way in January.
Brilliant.
It's time for the Endy Bits.
Endy Bits, and the first thing I must do is something I totally neglected to do on the last episode. It's the giveaway, the shawl giveaway. It's the Enchanted Forest Pool Shawl by Jen Sheelan. She very kindly donated a copy to us, and I should have drawn for it on the last episode, and I didn't. But it just meant that more people could enter it, so that was great. So I have closed the thread now, and I've drawn for a winner. We had 87 entries, and the winner was number 15, and it's somebody that we know very well. Her Ravelry name is Mama C.
Oh, goodness.
And it's Christina in Washington. So Christina, you've won that pattern. I will contact Jen and tell her that you've won it, and then she will just send it over to you on Ravelry, so you don't actually need to do anything. You will just get that. So well done, Christina, and thank you for everybody that entered into that.
Yes.
And then I have a mount. Can you see this mountain here?
Kay's going to show you some yarn that we picked up in a lovely yarn shop in York.
Yes.
And rather than us just show you the yarn, how's about we show you the shop?
And here it is. It's on the rather lovely street in York called Gillygate. It's just 2 minutes from the York walls. And it's a really quick walk actually from the town centre as well. We'd been at the shop that must not be named the Harry Potter shop on the Shambles. And we were on our way back to the car and we just happened to spot this lovely shop. It's only been open since 2016. It's run by the rather lovely Kaylee, who used to be a school teacher, and she just had a total change of lifestyle and opened up a yarn shop. And look at that yarn! It's so lovely to find a place which I think Kay thought she'd spotted it before, but I'd never spotted this place before. And I think when you find something new, it's like finding treasure, isn't it? And it's big and airy and there's just lots going on. It's not just yarn. And we couldn't believe it because we were only talking about her the other day, and Kay's actually going to talk about this at length when we head back to the studio, but who happened to be in there on her lunch break? She just popped in to see her friend Kaylee, but Alice from Alice Yarns. So we got to see Alice again as well, which was just wonderful. We'd only met her once before at Spring Into Wool, and considering just an episode or two ago we spoke about her, to suddenly find her there and chatting away was just great. But look, Fabric 2, an awful lot going on here, and like I said before, I really wish that we had a shop like this local to us. It's the type of place that really does deserve support. As I mentioned, opened in 2016. Currently they don't have an online shop, but talking to Kaylee, that is something that they're planning on doing. So if you are in York, or if you are planning a trip to York, then definitely look these guys up, go in, see Kaylee, and also see her rather lovely doggy as well called George. He's just amazing. We had the best time there, and yeah, I really wish the York Makery and Kaylee all the very best with lots of success, and we will be back, yes!
What an absolutely beautiful shop.
It was lovely and such a surprise.
To meet
I know.
Alice Yarn.
We could not believe it, right? We just went in on a whim, didn't we? We were
Yeah.
walking back to the car.
Yeah.
And Dan just said, oh, shall we have a look in? It's open. And this lovely lady came over straight away and said, can I help you? And I was looking at this. It's the West Yorkshire Spinners Croft yarn. So I was chatting to her about it, and then she said to me, you're Bryony Bears, aren't you? And I was like, oh, yeah, I am. And she says, oh, I'm Alice from Alice Yarns.
Would you believe it? We'd only spoken about her the other week.
I was like, I can't believe it. I said, oh my gosh. She says, it wasn't her shop. She helps out in the shop. Her friend runs it, Kaylee. It was lovely and had the cutest dog, puppy in the world. Oh my goodness. He was adorable.
So I've put the details of the shop in the show notes.
Yeah, that Kaylee posted yesterday, and they're now open. They're only closed Monday and Sunday. They're open the rest of the week.
But if you happen to find yourself in York, I would
Yeah.
strongly advise that going there. And it has made me
Absolutely.
think. We've spoken before about wanting to support bricks and mortar
Yeah.
shops, and it's made me think about what we can do next year, because it would be nice to try and do things like that every so often. Go into a
Yeah,
shop, show it to
absolutely.
you, pick up some yarn.
I was thinking that myself, actually,
Yeah.
that I'd like to go to a few yarn shops next year.
Maybe we could then have like a directory of shops that we've been to, and we can tell you guys about, and yeah.
So that was the first thing that I bought. I got some of this Croft yarn, the West Yorkshire Spinners, and I saw this is a new yarn, fairly new yarn, and I've seen this on their kind of Instagram feed, and I've seen other people buying it, and I was intrigued by it, but I did think it would be too scratchy for me. It's 100% Shetland, and it's actually milled at, I think it's Jameson and Smith. So it says it's in association with Jameson and Smith. So I'm presuming that they've provided the yarn and then West Yorkshire Spinners have dyed it. That's what I'm presuming. So I got this lovely purple, which is number 760, and it's called Dowel Setter. And then this lovely sort of greenish, bluish, orangish, and that's Stony Brook. It's a worsted weight, or does it say it's... I think it's classed as a worsted weight, or maybe Aran. It's 182 Aran weight, 182 yards. So again, that's the difference with the whole Aran weight thing that I was talking about, isn't it? But it looks more like worsted to me. But anyway, whatever the weight is, it's lovely. And I think I bought these to make hats because it actually isn't as scratchy as I thought. And Alice was telling me she was knitting a hat with it and she said it was really nice. It was knitting up lovely. So I think it would be really great as a bankhead actually.
Right.
And that colour on Dan I think would be brilliant. So I got 2 of those. And then lovely Alice, although she's stopped dyeing, which is so sad, but I understand, you know, how much time these things take up. She had a few of her skeins of yarn in the shop, you know, just leftover stock. And she said to me, I'll just go and choose one and you can have it. I thought that was so lovely. So thank you so much for that, Alice. And I chose this one because I thought it looked like Goffy. And Goffy's here today. Oh, here's Goffy, all dressed for winter. And I chose this one. It's a DK weight and it's called Macarena. And it's 100% superwash merino. Because I thought it looked like Goffy. What are you laughing at?
I was trying to sing the Macarenas.
Oh, gosh. Look, doesn't it look like Goffy? And I'm going to knit something for Bryony with this. I was thinking actually she really likes at the minute, she wears fingerless mitts, the pink ones that I spoke about recently. She wears those for school and she really likes them. So I thought I might knit her some more fingerless mitts. And actually I'd love to get that done for Christmas and put them into a stocking. I think she'd really like that. She seems to prefer the fingerless ones to full mittens because I think she can still like work her phone and all that kind of stuff. So it's really lovely. Thank you so much, Alice. It's very precious. You know, because she doesn't dye anymore. So that was that. And then the last thing I picked up was some more West Yorkshire spinners, and it's the Bo Peep. Can you remember I knit some socks? It was for my incantation socks pattern. There's a DK weight version within the pattern, and this is the yarn that I knit them in. I wear those socks every single week. You know, I put them on with my pyjamas at night. I've washed them numerous times in the washer. And they still look brilliant. So I wanted to get some more to knit some more socks, and I love this colour. I think the pink is called Piglet, but I can't remember what this colour's called. It's colourway number 8, I think. I do wish they put the colourway names actually on. They do on the Croft, but not on this. Oh, it's not 8, because that says 8 as well. That's 837, that's 269. So it's the Bo Peep, which is designed as a baby yarn, and actually Kaylee was saying it wasn't selling massively well as a baby yarn. I don't understand why that would be because it's beautiful. It's 52% Falkland and 48% nylon. So for socks, it's just brilliant with that nylon content, and it's so soft and it knits up to like a Fair Isle pattern. So I've got 2 balls and then that for the heels and toes or whatever. So I'm going to knit those as well. So that was our visit.
Cool.
To the York shop, and then I've been dyeing up some minis just lately, and I did some kind of just playing about, and I ended up with sort of 3 leftover minis. So I've bundled them together and I'm going to use these as one of the prizes in our knit-alongs that are sort of going on at the moment. There's the lovely sort of like a blue with speckles. There's this kind of corally pink, which is really pretty. And then this one actually is a little house that went with the mini set, the Christmas mini set I did recently. I accidentally put a bunch of minis in a pot thinking it was a full skein, so I ended up with some minis, which is always nice. So that will be a prize. And then talking of minis, I did some dyeing day before yesterday, and I've done some more. I just was inspired to do some more mini skeins. I did a batch of figgy pudding as well, which I'll go into the shop this weekend. But I also dyed some minis, and I had this thought of dyeing up 5 20-gram minis in sort of a Christmas themed and calling it Tinsel and Turkey. Do you know how like you see kind of coach loads of people going away on Tinsel and Turkey weekends? I don't know if that happens in other countries, but you see it a lot in this country. So I thought...
I think one of those was going on at the Royal Hotel in Whitby, because when I walked past when I was doing the filming, the tables were set up for Christmas.
Yeah. So I wanted to dye one that looked like turkey, one that looked like a Christmas tree, and then the other 3 to look like tinsel, kind of vintage tinsel colours. So I did that and I hung them on the line, and then Bryony came home from school and she went, "They're all the Hogwarts colours." Totally was an accident. So this is now Tinsel and Turkey at Hogwarts. And this is all 5 of the colours. I've twisted them together into so there's 5 20-gram minis in here, just twisted together. So we've got gold, we've got red, blue, silver and green. And it totally looks like Hogwarts. And that was a complete accident. So I'll have a batch of these mini sets as well going into the shop this weekend. I noticed that. Look, there's a bit I know, there's a bit of a dodgy nylon thing going on in just a little bit of the area of the yarn there. The socks that I'm knitting for Dan, the Opal Memory, do you know how I said that I was knitting a scrappy pair of socks one time and it had this colourway in that I absolutely loved? Well, happy accident. When I was searching to see if I could find the colourway name of that blue one I'm knitting, so I put into the search engine Opal Memory, sock yarn. And this shop came up that I'd never heard of in the UK with some opal yarn, and they had some Opal Memory. I was like, oh my gosh, I'll have a quick look. And I had a look and they had the colourway that I really loved that I put into those scrappy socks. So I quickly grabbed a ball and it's this one. So it's Opal Memory again, and this time it's 2497. And it's like a sort of peachy pink, a more ballerina pink, and then there's navy and pale blue. And I find you don't often see colours like this from Opal. I think they use more kind of bold colours. So when I saw this, I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to grab that. It's beautiful. So this is another now precious stash. Oh, lovely. That'll be socks for me, definitely.
So thank you so much for watching. What a bumper episode. What's happening over the next couple of weeks? We'll be continuing the Snowfall Socks series.
Yeah.
There'll be more toy knit-alongs. With that in mind, please do join in with our toy-along, which we're doing with Pennock & Needles and also the Victorian Studio podcast. You can treble dip, so that's an absolute winner. The fog-along continues. We're getting close to the end now. Runners, we're not going to make it, but let's get as far around the world as we can.
Yes.
Knitters, you're absolutely flying. And we'll be giving you an update on exactly where you are in the next pop, which will be the next Patron-only podcast. It will be back on Facebook. We tried out the broadcasting through Patreon. It's not up to snuff.
No.
So we're going back to what we know works. So we'll be broadcasting live in the Patrons private Facebook group at 2 p.m. on Sunday the 26th of November, and that's 2 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. We'll be recording the show as well, and the recording will then be published within 48 hours of that show going live. So if you're not in the Facebook group, you will be able to watch the show in glorious HD again, and that will be through Patreon within 48 hours of that show going live. Thank you so much for watching.
Goodness, thank you.
We're in for a very exciting couple of weeks because it is, for the first time ever, we are filming our Advent calendar and we're filming it at Christmas.
We're doing it differently this year.
This year is different to anything we've ever done before.
Yeah, that is just going to be so fun, hopefully for people to watch and certainly for us to do as well. And yeah, we're really excited.
The purpose of this year's Advent calendar is our quest for the perfect family Christmas.
Yeah.
So you will join us as we uncover what is the perfect family Christmas and where do you get it from?
And our quest to gather all these things to to allow us to have the perfect Christmas.
So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for more.
Thanks everybody.
Of the Baker and Bears bucket
Get
list.
knitting your socks. I'm addicted at the minute. Keep knitting socks, everyone.
Hand knit socks rule, okay. Come back in 2 weeks because there'll be more Baker and Bears bucket list, and there will be more of us down the world food art. And yes, we have purchased Twinkies, but will we eat them? Find out in the next show. Bye.
Bye everyone.
Sitting and knitting, it's Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. Enthusiasm's not quitting for Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. They'll take you to fabulous places of which their favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern, get yourself a bakery bear. You'll find yourself in a castle while watching the bakery bears. It never feels like a hassle to sit and watch the bakery bears. What's on your shelf or what's in your oven, or maybe a shawl you'll want to wear. So sit yourself right down and